Q Review Print Speaking to the Blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @CuneReview, that is @CuandReview. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@cunereview.com. That is INFORMATION@CUENDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 28th of August 2024. From the news section. Ian Packer. Emma Cadwell murderer sees appeal thrown out. This article was written by Gabriel McKay, and it's being read by me, Corey. The killer of Emma Cadwell has had his appeal against a minimum 36-year prison sentence thrown out by the courts. Ian Packer was sentenced in March this year for the abduction and murder of the 27-year-old, as well as admitting a charge of sexual assault. In total, Packer, 51, was facing 36 charges of physical and sexual violence against 25 women, and was found guilty on 33 of them. He lodged an appeal, but that was thrown out by the appeal court in Edinburgh on Wednesday, August 28th. Amir Anwar, the solicitor for Emma's mother, Margaret, said, "Today at the appeal court in Edinburgh, Ian Packer, who in March 2024 was given a life sentence and ordered to serve a minimum of 36 years in prison, had his appeal against sentence refused. Packer was found guilty of 33 charges against a total of 22 women, including Emma's murder and 11 rapes. Mr. Packer evaded justice for nearly 19 years, but will die a convicted killer and serial rapist. Packer's name will one day turn to dust, long after Emma's name lives on. Had it not been for Margaret Cadwell's tireless campaigning, then any hope of justice would have been buried forever. For far too long, those responsible for gifting a killer his freedom have remained in the shadows, but they must face the glare of public scrutiny. The only forum for that will be before a statutory judge-led public inquiry. The Scottish Government appeared desperate to appoint a Scottish judge, despite the demands of Emma's mother and cross-parliamentary support for a judge out with Scotland's jurisdiction, for which, of course, there is precedent. Justice must be seen to be done. The Police and Crown Office presided over years of misery that saw multiple women raped and a killer emboldened by a belief that he had a lifelong immunity. Whatever the jobs, addictions or vulnerabilities of Emma Cadwell or the 22 women who gave evidence, it should never have been used as a justification for sexual violence or to treat them as a second-class citizen. They mattered. Packer is now irrelevant to the Cadwell family, and the focus should move to those police officers and Crown officials who betrayed the most fundamental duty of all to protect life. There should be no hiding place for those who perverted the course of justice. The victims of Packer deserve nothing less. Packer evaded justice for the murder, which took place in 2005, for close to 2 decades. Cadwell, who had turned to prostitution to pay for a heroin habit, was reported missing in April of that year, with her body discovered in Limefield Woods around 8 miles south of Biggar, South Lanarkshire, on May 8th. No DNA traces were found, and Strathclyde Police spent £4 million investigating 4 Turkish men who they alleged had strangled the 27-year-old at a Glasgow cafe. The case collapsed when a translation purporting to prove the men had spoken about the murder of Cadwell was proven to be incorrect. Packer had been questioned in 2005, but was initially ruled out of the investigation. In 2018, he spoke to the BBC's Disclosure, where he denied the killings and having been violent with women. He was not arrested and charged for the murder until 2022. Police Scotland said after he was sentenced, Emma Cadwell, her family and many other victims were let down by policing in 2005. For that, we are sorry. A significant number of women and girls who showed remarkable courage to speak up at that time also did not get the justice and support they needed and deserved from Strathclyde Police. Police Scotland launched a re-investigation of the case in 2015 after instructions from the Lord Advocate. It is clear that further investigations should have been carried out into Emma's murder following the initial inquiry in 2005. The lack of investigation until 2015 caused unnecessary distress to her family and all those women who had come forward to report sexual violence. We have reflected and learnt from the initial investigation and subsequent re-investigation. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Gabriel McKay, and it was read by me, Corey. The Herald Scotland, on Wednesday the 28th of August 2024. From the news section. Man sentenced to 8 years in jail over serious sexual offences. This article was written by Mark McDougall and read by me, Corey. A 26-year-old man has been jailed for 8 years for a series of serious sexual offences against a woman. Connor Hagley pleaded guilty to the abuse, including rape of a woman between 2019 and 2021 at the High Court in Edinburgh on Monday, July 22nd. He was sentenced at the High Court in Stirling yesterday and has also been placed on the Sex Offenders Register indefinitely. Hagley used a balaclava when carrying out his attacks on women on 10 separate occasions. The court heard about how the victim had walked into a bedroom and been attacked and realised he must have hidden behind the door to get to her. He also subjected her to a catalogue of violence during which she was slapped, punched and threatened while he was armed with a machete. Detective Inspector Keith Taylor has now described him as a danger to women and praised the victim for her strength throughout the investigation and court proceedings. He said, Hagley is a danger to women, and his conviction proves that. He'll now face the consequences of his despicable actions, which have had a devastating impact on the women involved. I would like to commend her for her strength throughout the investigation and court proceedings. I hope this sentencing will bring some form of justice as she continues to move forward with her life. Anyone who has been a victim of such crimes is urged to come forward and report it to us. We're committed to fully investigating, regardless of when it happened, and bringing those responsible in front of the courts. I want to reassure you, we have specially trained officers and partner agencies who will support you throughout. That article was from the Herald Scotland. It was from the news section. It was written by Mark McDougall, and it was read by me, Corey.
From the Herald, Wednesday, the 28th of August, 2024. O'Reilly's Brighton debut over within minutes following injury scare. And this article is by Robbie Henratty and read by Ross. Matt O'Reilly was hobbled off the pitch in serious discomfort only 9 minutes into his Brighton debut. The Danish international midfielder joined the English Premier League club for a Scottish record $30 million on Monday, and he was included in the starting 11 as Brighton took on Crawley Town this evening. It was meant to be the start of an exciting new chapter down south, yet the former Celtic star could be seen looking distraught and shaking his head while being helped off the pitch by medical staff at the American Express Stadium. Before the Carabao Cup match, O'Reilly was asked by Sky Sports if he had a message for the Celtic fans after departing the club he called home for 2.5 years. "I don't know where to start," the 23-year-old stated. "I will give a quick one now and do another one formally later. Thank you very much for everything. They made me feel welcome right from day one. It was quite tough to say goodbye, and things happened really, really quickly as well, so it was a bit annoying I couldn't get to say a real proper goodbye. I will take some time after to do a proper slow message to really thank them." Addressing the reckless challenge from Jay Williams, which evidently caught Brighton's new signing on the left ankle, head coach Fabian Hertzeller raged at the fact the opposition player avoided a card, as he explained how O'Reilly will now require a medical scan. He said, "I think after this foul the players could tackle like they want, because there was no yellow card. For me it was a clear red card. You can't tackle like this. You can be hard, you can be ruthless, but you can't take the risk to injure a player. He, Williams, was much too late. I hope Matt is not as badly injured as it looks. We have to wait for the scan on his ankle. He said to me he could not put any weight on his ankle, so it's not nice." And that article was by Robbie Hanratty.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday, the 28th of August 2024, from the business section. Funding boost for world's first mechanical bionic hand. This article is by Christy Dorsey. A young Scottish company developing a world-first mechanical bionic hand has secured £800,000 in seed funding to further its work. Based in Edinburgh, Metacarpal is using advanced engineering techniques to create a highly functional prosthetic hand that is completely controlled and powered by body motion. By providing a better alternative, the company hopes to enhance the acceptance rate of prosthetics among patients. The NHS estimates that between 26% and 45% of upper limb amputees choose to wear no prosthetic at all, rather than any products currently available. Meanwhile, the global market for upper limb prosthetics is forecasted to reach $1.2 billion or £91 million by 2028. Metacarpal was founded by the University of Strathclyde product design engineering graduate Fergal Mackey in 2020, who was inspired by an accident he had in the final year of his studies. He had to discover new ways of completing his daily tasks after falling over and breaking both of his wrists, which sparked his interest in prosthetics. Metacarpal was established to create a better quality of life for amputees, Mr. Mackey said. With the use of truly revolutionary, unique and disruptive technology, our body-powered bionic hand is raising the standard of upper limb prosthetics. It is the only device to utilize reactive body power technology, giving fingers individual motion. Mr. Mackey said the majority of development in prosthetics to date has focused on robotic hands, leaving a large gap in the market for body-powered devices. The bionic hand combines body-powered control with the functionality of a myoelectric prosthetic, providing 5-finger motion, variable grips, and wrist positions, without the need for electronics. The funding has been provided by SIS Ventures, Scottish Enterprise, Worth Capital, Oxford Technology, the University of Strathclyde, and Gabriel Investment Syndicate. The money will allow Metacarpal to finalise the product and begin manufacturing, and double its headcount to 8. Mr. Mackey said his ultimate ambition is to change the lives of those with limb differences, while continuing development of the technology and expanding its capabilities in prosthetics. The success of the seed funding round is a huge milestone for the business, which will enable us to develop our bionic into a commercially viable product with the potential to change the lives of prosthetics users, he said. I cannot wait to see the impact that it has. Metacarpal follows in the footsteps of another Scottish-based company, Touch Bionics, which was the first to develop an electronically powered prosthetic hand with 5 independently powered fingers. The company's eye-limb was the brainchild of David Gow, a Dumfries-born mechanical engineer who started researching upper limb prosthetics at the University of Edinburgh in the 1980s. Now based in Livingston, the company was established in 2003 after being spun out of the National Health Service. Touch Bionics was sold to Icelandic Orthopedics Group in 2016 in a deal worth £27.5 million. Reykjavik-based Osur said at the time that the Scottish acquisition would allow it to offer a complete bionic product portfolio to customers in the prosthetic industry. That article was by Christy Dorsey. This is from the Herald Scotland of Wednesday the 28th of August 2024 from the business section. Scottish new and used cars family dealerships turnover through £1 billion. This article is by Ian McConnell. Family-owned car dealership business John Clark Motor Group raised its turnover to more than £1 billion last year, the latest accounts reveal. The company, which has sites across north, east and central Scotland, increased its turnover to £1.0299 billion in 2023 from £914.3 million in the previous year. It flagged strong trading positives in spite of significant adverse used car market pricing changes in the later part of 2023. John Clark Motor Group sold 13,428 new vehicles last year, up from 11,308 in the prior 12 months. Used vehicle sales in 2023 totaled 18,412, up from 18,304 in 2022, and after-sales revenue increased from £85.8 million in 2022 to £94.9 million last year. Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization rose to £35.18 million last year from £33.76 million in 2022. Operating profit before interest was £27.71 million in 2023, down slightly from £27.91 million in the prior year. Net profit before tax dipped from £25.31 million in 2022 to £22.86 million last year. John Clark Motor Group said, "These accounts show that we maintained positive momentum towards our key strategic objectives as we crossed the £1 billion turnover threshold." Motor Trade Media Specialist surveys saw us again ranked as one of the top 20 groups in the UK, with net profits which represented a UK motor trade upper quarter return on sales. Group Managing Director Chris Clark said, "I am clearly very happy to report further year-on-year gains continuing to build on our success of previous years. Our teams can once again celebrate playing their part in what has been another great year for the group, and we remain incredibly grateful for all the hard work and effort that each one of our colleagues puts into their roles. I know we have one of the best teams in the industry, and I'm very proud to be part of it." John Clark Motor Group declared it saw the benefits of a continued focus on operational efficiencies and agility to counter and optimize performance in an ever-changing market. It added, "We again offered effective multi-channel communication to our customers and colleagues, which allowed us to listen, learn, and act." The result being that, despite significant adverse used car market pricing changes in the latter months, 2023 as a whole saw strong trading positives and the continuation of a robust positive cash at bank position.
From Herald Scotland, Monday, 2nd September 2024. From the STEM section of the business section. Gadget has potential to double the shelf life of your fruits and veg. Article by Sean Dimmock. Technology. Vitacy Shelfie. What is it? A fridge purifier designed to keep it smelling fresh and your food in peak condition for longer. Good points? One of Shelfie's standout features is its potential to double the shelf life of your fruits and vegetables by slowing down the natural ripening process and reducing the release of ethylene gas, a key culprit in food spoilage, meaning produce can stay fresh for up to 12 days longer. The device aims to reduce up to 99% of bacteria within 10 minutes of operation and minimise the risk of food contamination. Additionally, Shelfie's advanced photocatalytic technology plays a crucial role in eliminating up to 80% of odours, which are often caused by the build-up of mould and decaying food. Maintenance of the Shelfie purifier is both simple and sustainable. The device comes equipped with a washable and reusable filter, meaning there's no need to purchase replacements continually. Just rinse the filter under running water and the photocatalytic technology will take care of eliminating any residual odours and bacteria. The Vitacy Hub app lets you know exactly when it's time to charge the device or wash the filter via handy notifications you can control. Shelfie is powered by a rechargeable battery which, when fully charged via USB-C, lasts up to 3 weeks. Bad points? The device, measuring 16.7 by 11.4 by 6.7 centimetres or 6.6 by 4.5 by 2.6 inches, can take up valuable space in small fridges. Best for anyone looking to extend the freshness of their groceries while maintaining a clean and hygienic refrigerator environment. Avoid if you cannot face adding another app to your already overcrowded smartphone screen. Score 9 out of 10. Vitacy Shelfie, £119 from amazon.co.uk. And that article was written by Sean Dimmock. From Herald Scotland, Monday, 2nd of September 2024. From the STEM section of the business section. Why Glasgow's subway woes mirror those of Sydney. Article by David Leask. Outsiders are running out of superlatives for Glasgow's new subway trains. For weeks, wide-eyed visitors have been raving about the bespoke cars built for what is one of the world's oldest underground transit systems. Travel vloggers, in particular, cannot get enough of the visually striking Swiss-made replacements for the Metro Camel carriages of the very 1980s Clockwork Orange. "It's like an alien coming out of a tunnel," declared YouTubers JJ Extra of the new vehicles in a video already viewed more than 100,000 times. "It is so futuristic." That same word was used by Edificity on the same platform. This urbane video maker, who likes to cover transport and architecture, told an even bigger audience that the new vehicles were great, even incredible. He added, "The trains are futuristic and yet slightly timeless. At first I was sad about relegating the orange to the doors and trims, but actually, in the relatively dim stations the white car body really shines." That word futuristic was also bandied around this summer about one of the newest metro lines on the planet in Sydney, Australia. In Glasgow, it is just the cars that are new. In the New South Wales capital, it is an entire extension. Both systems, Scotland's eventually, and Sydney's already, are designed to do without drivers. Reviewers of the Australian line have been every bit as gushing and breathless as those talking about Glasgow's far dinkier equivalent. Writing in The Guardian's Down Under edition, one writer, Melanie Tate, declared images of the new stations had been architectural porn. Then she added, "The videos made by train spotters geeking out at the speed, the lighting and the cleanliness were as exciting as any trailer for a blockbuster movie." Tate, a playwright, had a point. Some of the corridors and deep escalators of the Sydney system do look like a sci-fi set. Whoever makes the next Star Wars movie could save a bob or two by having their space goodies and baddies fight with their electric swords somewhere under New South Wales. It is not just the patter about space-age trains that binds the Scottish and the Australian stories. There is something else too, repeated griping about snagging and costs. Coverage of Glasgow's new trains, for starters, has been strikingly negative in mainstream news outlets. The cars are part of a modernisation programme that came with a price tag of £288 million. As so often is the case with big projects, the new trains and the infrastructure improvement they required have not been without glitches. The modernised vehicles might be described as space age, but they are initially running more slowly than those of the steam age. That should change. There have been stories about delays and even breakdowns which force passengers, including an opposition MSP, to get out and walk along tunnels to escape, which is either an adventure or terrifying, depending on how much you like dank holes in the ground. SPT, the quango responsible for the subway, has admitted the issues. Back in June, its officials filed an official report on the progress of the modernisation programme. At the risk of unfairly summing up their view on snags, it went something like, "Yeah, these things happen." The significant successes of new fleet introduction seen in the last 6 months have also been accompanied by a level of service disruption which has directly affected our customers, read the official report. We have seen a rise in complaints and an interest in the overall fleet performance as a result of this disruption. Increased disruption was a known risk, common with all new fleet introductions and which SPT has focused on. Our legacy fleet is at the end of its life and regularly causes delays and disruption, while our new fleet has also experienced some issues which would reasonably be expected at this stage of operation. There is a whole long backstory to the Metro in New South Wales. Greater Sydney has roughly as many people as the whole of Scotland, but it was only in the new century that serious consideration was given to an underground transit system to keep them moving. Things got serious a decade ago after the New South Wales government privatised its power company to help finance the scheme. Because this project is expensive, very, very expensive. Sydney's entire network, currently one of the biggest rail construction projects in the world, is going to set back the taxpayer 65 billion Australian dollars, which translates as well a lot more than efforts to replace Glasgow's old orange trains. The latest extension is costing 21 billion in Aussie money, or 11 billion in British money. It includes shiny new stations such as Gadigal, near the seat of city government, and a new Sydney Central. There has been slippage. Last summer, a government report said the overall scheme was facing significant technical and budget risks. The entire scheme needed a cash injection of more than $1 billion, it said. There remains uncertainty about the third and final line to southwest Sydney, initially scheduled to be up and running by the end of the decade. As in Glasgow, the latest extension needed time for engineers to iron out snags and carry out safety checks. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, who is very crudely the equivalent of a Scottish First Minister, last month ended up apologising profusely when it emerged that an August the 4th launch was not going to be possible. It's a lesson for us about not jumping the gun here and making sure that when we name a date, we're sure it can go ahead, he said. I'm really sorry about it. Officials, he added, wanted to make sure they got everything right. Minns had previously called for an inquiry into costs and delays. Some news outlets screamed that it was obvious for some time that Australia's rail regulator would not sign off on the new line in time. Scroll forward a few days and 7 News Australia declared, "It's finally here." The TV station's correspondent joined New South Wales beaming Transport Minister Joe Halen on a red-eye commuter service from the suburbs to the central business district. "People are going to love this new service. I think Sydney is going to be wowed." She was not alone on her train. A couple of 100,000 people boarded metro trains when the last line opened on August 19th. Reports and social media posts, unlike so much of the politics in the build-up, were upbeat. Commuters were getting home much quicker, sparking a joke that a suburban husband was caught with his mistress when his wife arrived half an hour earlier than usual. There is a pattern in Scotland and New South Wales of both cynicism and enthusiasm about high-tech developments. ABC, the main public TV in Australia, asked a transport expert if he could explain why punters were quite so happy with the new metro. Geoffrey Clinton used a word that has been littered throughout this article. People, he explained, like things that are new, and the driverless trains feel like something that's exciting, that's modern and futuristic. Glasgow's subway, of course, has never been expanded, despite numerous proposals. Passengers moan about service restrictions and its pace. But the Scottish system is now somehow both old and new, both cute and contemporary. So expect more rave reviews from visitors, if not locals. And that article was written by David Leask. That article was read today by me, Bob. From Herald Scotland, Monday, 2nd of September 2024, from the STEM section of the business section. Strathclyde University Institute aims to make space sector sustainable. Article sponsored by Strathclyde University. A new £1.5 million international initiative led by Strathclyde University has funded the creation of a new Institute on AI for Space Sustainability, which will tackle space traffic management and debris, aiming to safeguard future missions. It may seem an unlikely claim to make, but Professor Massimiliano Vasile is completely serious when he says space is running out of, well, space. Space is not as big as people might think, explains the director of Strathclyde University's Aerospace Centre of Excellence. We rely on space services and applications, GPS for example, and weather forecasting, which means we are launching more and more satellites into orbit. There has been a very fast increase in the private commercial space sector, so there is more traffic and more space debris. It is going to reach a critical level soon. At that point, we won't be able to launch anything, and those services I mentioned won't be possible. In a bid to tackle the problem, the Pioneering Centre is leading a £1.5 million initiative to accelerate the development of AI technologies in space. With a number of international partners, including the University of Arizona, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, the University of Waterloo in Canada, the Alan Turing Institute, and commercial space companies LMO and GMV in the UK, Nominal Systems in Australia, and Columbiad in Canada, researchers plan to develop cutting-edge technologies for the space sector through the new Institute on AI for Space Safety and Sustainability. The year-long project comes under the second phase of the £20 million international bilateral fund investments by the UK Space Agency, which will help UK organisations link up with global experts. Space sustainability is one of the most compelling technological challenges we have at the moment, explains Professor Vasile. The idea for the Institute came about because AI is growing in every sector, and we wanted to understand how it could help our sustainable use of space. Some of the satellites we launch into space are there because we want to be more sustainable on Earth, to use fewer resources and have a lower impact on climate. Unfortunately, that means we are extracting resources from Earth and launching them into space and then leaving them there as space junk. Space debris, leftover items from previous missions, is a huge problem, with the UK Space Agency estimating that millions of these objects, from old satellites to astronauts' toothbrushes, are orbiting the planet. Almost 37,000 of them are larger than 10 centimetres, and an estimated 130 million measure less than 1 centimetre. The Institute plans to use machine learning, a form of AI, to help predict the motion of space objects, reducing the risk of collisions and improving space flight safety. Professor Vasile says safety and the reliability and robustness of AI are key to the work of the Institute. He explains, "One of our goals is to change the way we use and understand AI. There are two elements which are extremely important. Firstly, we need to lower the risk. It is not that we want to anticipate everything that AI does, but whatever it is doing, it needs to be safe and reduce the risk for every space asset. The other important point is that the Institute will explain what AI does. This lowers the barrier between human beings and AI, because often it is unclear exactly what AI does or might do. AI can improve the automation of space traffic," he adds, "in a similar way to self-driving cars, for example. Road traffic is regulated, air traffic even more so, but space traffic is unfortunately not as regulated," says Professor Vasile. "We operate satellites remotely. No one is up there driving them, so automation can help by helping operators to make informed decisions, to lower the risk of collisions. Also, it can sometimes be difficult to understand what has happened to a satellite when it misbehaves. AI can help us to classify and characterize what we are observing. One of the key goals of the Institute is to accelerate the development of tech and new concepts to adoption in the space sector. The Institute has the knowledge and expertise to help individuals and companies develop their ideas," says Professor Vasile. "We will also support governments, for example, in deciding how to license or insure new missions so they understand the risks and global impacts on the space environment. The Institute will also provide consultancy and entrepreneurial services and training in how to use AI technology in space. It is an international collaboration between industry, academic research institutions and government bodies, with 9 partners across 4 countries already on board. There are many ways to engage with us. We are open to collaboration with anyone who wants to become a member and support the growth of the Institute," says Professor Vasile. "The UK is championing sustainability internationally, and what the Institute wants to provide is that ability to continue using space in the long term, but also support new, innovative ideas and concepts that will contribute to a sustainable space." And that article was brought to you by Strathclyde University. From Herald Scotland, Monday, 2nd of September 2024, from the STEM section of the business section. Sunamp cranks up the heat with thermal energy storage. Article by Christy Dorsey. Andrew Bissell and Susan Lang Bissell set up Sunamp in 2005 to become part of the energy transition to combat climate change. Working in collaboration with the University of Edinburgh's School of Chemistry, they have developed a thermal energy storage system using salt-based phase change materials. Speaking from the companies based in East Lothian, Ms. Lang Bissell talks about her passion for sustainability, Sunamp's future growth plans, and why it's sometimes best to just get on with it. Tell us a bit about your operation. We currently employ 80 people, mainly in Scotland, but also across the UK, Europe, North America and China. Our head office is at McMurray in East Lothian, and our factory is a few miles away in Musselburgh. We have an office in Zurich and a presence in North America, China and Italy. What do you do? We design and manufacture space-saving heat batteries using our proprietary Plenty-grade phase change material. Our Thermino heat batteries are reliable, low maintenance, non-toxic, and significantly smaller and more energy efficient than traditional hot water cylinders. This year we were thrilled to be named a finalist in the Royal Academy of Engineering's MacRobert Award, alongside Google DeepMind and University of Oxford Vaccine Consortium with AstraZeneca. Last year, our technology was recognised with a King's Award for Innovation. Who are your customers? SunAmp is a B2B business, so we sell our Thermino heat batteries for hot water to housing associations and developers in the residential market and through our distribution partners and heating installers. We also have a commercial and industrial division focused on developing our central bank range, which provides thermal storage solutions up to the size of shipping containers. We currently have a project transporting heat along the Thames on barges, which could eventually supply over 3,000 homes connected to a London district heating network. How much investment has the company raised to date, and what is your latest annual turnover? We have attracted a range of funding from a mix of government grants, venture capital and strategic investments to support our development and expansion. In the early days, grants from Innovate UK were crucial in supporting our research and development activities. Angel investors provided initial capital to develop our product and market presence, and Scottish Investment Bank, the investment arm of Scottish Enterprise, has been a long-term supporter. We completed a significant investment round in 2020, raising £6 million. A year later, we raised a further £4.5 million to boost our manufacturing capacity and support our international expansion plans. Today, our turnover is around £10 million, and looking ahead, we will continue to leverage funding to drive growth, enhance our product offerings, and contribute to the global transition towards sustainable energy solutions. What led you to set up the business? We are passionate about sustainability and set out to find innovative solutions to lower the associated carbon emissions that plague our commercial and residential buildings. Heating and hot water accounts for over 3/4 of energy use in homes, yet, despite significant advancements in electric battery technology, no one had successfully developed a battery capable of efficiently storing heat. We saw a gap. What do you least enjoy about your job, and what do you most enjoy? I most enjoy working with lots of interesting people. We are lucky to have a very diverse staff from many different cultures. They all have such a lot to add, and we have a lot of fun. I least enjoy bureaucracy and dealing with the fallout that changes in energy policy have on our business and on raising investment. Our mission is to transform how heat is generated, stored and used to tackle climate change and safeguard our planet for future generations. The electrification of heating systems is paramount for greener, cleaner heat. SunAmp heat batteries and energy storage is a key component of this drive. We have an innovative product and need a level playing field when it comes to eligibility for incentives. It's frustrating that even when our heat batteries are included, for example in the Home Energy Scotland grant and loan, it can be short-lived. Support was suddenly withdrawn for solar PV and energy storage systems, including electric and heat batteries. Hot water cylinders that are installed as part of a heat pump system are still funded as part of the HES grant and loan funding, but not heat batteries used with heat pumps, which perform the same function more efficiently. What are your immediate goals and ambitions? To continue our scale up, sales growth is key to the adoption of green heating systems. Our immediate focus is on strengthening our presence in the European market, capitalising on the success we have had so far in the Chinese and North American markets, and to meet demand for our products globally. What would most help you achieve these goals? Policy certainty, increasing sales and further investment to help us penetrate new markets. We have sold over 30,000 heat batteries so far, and demand is increasing as the deadline for moving away from fossil fuels approaches. Switching to renewables means householders have to find space for a bulky hot water cylinder or use a more compact solution. What is the most valuable lesson you have learned in business? Be nice to people. If you smile, people will smile back. Where do you find yourself most at ease? I'm at ease in most situations, to be honest, whether I'm discussing expansion plans with investors, collaborating with staff, or simply reading a book. I'm quite often out of my comfort zone, but I hide it very well. As the Chief Operations Officer, my role involves a lot of variety, and I thrive on the diverse challenges that come my way. If you weren't in your current role, what job would you most fancy? I would have loved to be a Blue Peter presenter. My background as a secondary school teacher allowed me to blend creativity with working closely with people, and I like that combination. What is the best book you have ever read? Why is it the best? Perfume by Patrick Suskind is the best book I have read. The unique approach of weaving a story around scent rather than visual descriptions was fascinating. What has been your most challenging moment in life or business? Changes in policy and the uncertainty it brings for our business. What do you now know that you wish you had known when starting out in your career? Don't sweat it, just get on with it. And that article was written by Christy Dorsey.
The Herald on the 3rd of September, and the news section. Ageing ScotRail trains to be replaced as drivers' union demand say, by Mark McDougall. Scotland's Train Drivers' Union has demanded they are fully involved in the process of procuring trains to replace their high-speed trains, HST fleet, that operate on intercity routes between Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen and Inverness. The Scottish Government has confirmed it will tell ScotRail to get replacement trains for their HST fleet in a bid to provide more consistent, comfortable experience for passengers on these routes. The decisions follow a process of looking at different options to replace the trains and took into consideration the possibility of transitioning from diesel power to electric trains, as well as the availability of funding and affordability changes. A detailed delivery timeline will be released by the Scottish Government in the coming weeks when a contract notice is published. ASLEF has praised the decision and say it comes as a direct result of sustained pressure from the Train Drivers' Union and is part of their long-running campaign to improve safety and environmental standards in Scotland's railways. Replacement of the HST fleet was one of the demands outlined in ASLEF's report, Vision for Scotland's Railways, which highlighted the inadequacies of the HSTs in terms of drivers and passenger safety, as well as their environmental impact. ASLEF is now calling on ScotRail and the Scottish Government to ensure train drivers are fully involved in the procurement process to guarantee the best possible trains are found. They feel that their members have the expertise and experience is invaluable in finding trains that will meet the highest standards. Kevin Lindsley, ASLEF Scotland organiser, said this announcement is a testament to the dedication and persistence of our members, who've consistently advocated for the safety and modernisation of Scotland's rail services. The HSTs are simply not fit for purpose in the 21st century, whether we're talking about driver and passenger safety or their environmental footprint. We are pleased that the Scottish Government has recognised the urgency of this issue and has taken action to replace these outdated trains. We urge ScotRail to engage with our members throughout this process. Their input is crucial in making sure that the new fleet not only meets the needs of passengers, but also ensures the highest standards of operational safety and efficiency. A statement from ScotRail said the Scottish Government has announced a plan to replace ScotRail's intercity high-speed trains, HSTs. The commercial tender will be launched in the coming weeks, which will set out the timescales for the replacement. ScotRail's procurement and fleet teams are working closely with Transport Scotland, Scottish Rail Holdings and Network Rail on the details of the procurement. ScotRail has been in touch with the unions following today's announcement to confirm our commitment to ensuring they are involved in the process. Joanne Maguire, ScotRail Managing Director, said, "Today's announcement is good news for our customers and an important step for ScotRail as we work towards delivering a safe, green and reliable railway. We will announce more details of the tender process in the coming weeks." Commenting on today's announcement, TSSA General Secretary Miriam S. Lamb-Doost said, "We are pleased the Scottish Government has at long last concluded that HSTs are not fit for purpose on our railways. These trains really are museum pieces and that is where they belong. Our focus is and always will be on the safety of Scotland's rail passengers and workers. For that reason, we will make sure our union works with ministers at Holyrood to ensure that the replacement of these trains meets the proper standards and will help provide the railways Scotland needs for the future." And that was by Mark McDougall. The Herald on the 3rd of September and the news section. Demolition begins on iconic O2 ABC building in Glasgow by Gabriel Mackay. Demolition work has begun on the ABC building on Glasgow's Sauchiehall Street. As reported by the Herald, campaigners looking to save the former cinema and music venue's iconic Art Deco facade feared the structure could be torn down as soon as this week. The building was badly damaged in the second of two fires at the Glasgow School of Art in June 2018, and last month a dangerous buildings notice was issued to its owners, requiring them to have it demolished by December 9. Work has now begun to demolish the building and surrounding structures with an excavator on site at the ABC. The process is expected to take several days. It's understood there will not be any closure of Sauchiehall Street while the demolition takes place, with the demolition to see the building collapse towards the end of towards the north, towards Renfrew Street. Council planners have ruled full or partial retention of this building is not viable, despite calls to save the Art Deco facade on the former cinema. Originally submitted in 2019, the application to knock down the building from owners O'Barks No. 1 LLP received more than 50 objections. However, a report stated that visits to the site in March and June of this year showed further deterioration, with the order that demolition work begin by September 30. Writing in the Herald on Tuesday, campaign group Save Britain's Heritage urged its owners to reconsider. A letter said, "We call on the current owners of the ABC Cinema, OBA or RCS ABC Limited and future developer Vita Group to save the eye-catching portico entrance of this Glasgow landmark and retain it as part of future proposals for the site. This former cinema, which sits right next door to the world-famous Glasgow School of Art, is under imminent threat of demolition." This Category C listed building of cultural significance is defined by its iconic Art Deco entrance designed in 1929 by one of Scotland's celebrated cinema architects, C.J. McNair. The building has been the site of entertainment of many different kinds for generations of Glaswegians. It has changed and adapted over the years, from panorama to circus to ice rink to dance hall to cinema to music venue. It was the site of Glasgow's first ever moving picture show. We urge the current owners and future developers to respect, not bulldoze, Glasgow's architectural heritage. Work with a conservation engineer to save not just fragments but the whole solid central entrance to this much-loved building. Future generations will thank you. In July, plans were submitted to create student accommodation and a downstairs food hall on the site. Urban regeneration specialist Vita Group said, With extensive fire damage to the ABC, retaining the building or its facade is not considered to be feasible due to the design, material condition and strength validation challenges uncovered through a series of surveys and structural reports. Opened in 1929 as the ABC Cinema, the building was designed by the architect C.J. McNair. It stood on the site of what had been Scotland's largest diorama. Before its use as a cinema, it was the location of Hengler's Circus, an ice skating rink and a dance hall. Following its closure as a cinema in 1998 and 1999, it was refitted to become a music venue, with David McBride of Regular Music winning permission to create a venue holding 1,300. It reopened in the summer of 2005 with an event headlined by Roddy Frame. Reviewing, the Herald said the ABC itself is a superb addition to the facilities in Style City. The main auditorium is blessed with great sound and sight lines, the bars and toilet provision generous. It is big enough to feel important and small enough to feel intimate. ABC 2 downstairs, where the Buff Seat Club DJs spun funk and soul discs into the small hours, is likely, like the upstairs Polar Bar, to become a place to be seen. That summer, it would host Mogwai, US pop punk stars, Sum 41, and in October, and on the rise, Arctic Monkeys. Other artists to grace the stage include Paramore, Las Vegas, Paolo Nutini, Kendrick Lamar, and Public Enemy. And that was by Gabriel Mackay. The Herald on the 3rd of September, and the news section. Sports bar plan for a historic Scottish landmark approved by Brian Donnelly. Plans to transform an A-listed landmark bank building into a sports bar and restaurant in a Scottish city have been approved. The proposals included private dining rooms, a mezzanine level, and a darts area under a brand operated by an English pub group. Their application for change of use at 28 to 30 Hanover Street in Edinburgh, which is currently a TSB bank branch, has been granted. Plans by Mowbray Design Architects show Arc Inspirations box, sports bar and kitchen brand proposals covering 854 square metres. Phil Pritchett of Pritchett Design Consultancy said the application is being lodged by the owner of the building, who is in discussions with a potential occupier. No detailed plans are currently available, and as such there are no proposals as yet to undertake the refurbishment works or alterations to the listed building. One neighbour, Scott Glanville, said, "I support this change of use if it is done to a high standard and reflective of the building's heritage, installing like-for-like original features. If they are currently missing, the same approach applied to the Jenners redevelopment should be applied to all buildings in the Newtown area." Another, John McKee of Hanover Health Foods, said, "I think there's now an over-reliance on catering and hospitality in the area, and this has some significant effects on the surrounding businesses, and they aren't all positive. Too many planning decisions have been made approving the move from banking/offices towards hospitality, and this has resulted, in my opinion, in a decline in footfall in this city centre. This is particularly exacerbated during periods of inclement weather. Office workers were expected to be in their offices most days of the week, which meant that they could shop before and after work as well as lunchtimes." Mr. Pritchett added, "It should also be noted that the unit has been in operation as a bank for many years. Whilst this was historically a necessary function in the city centre, the advent of online banking has meant that footfall to banks has significantly reduced in recent years. Introducing the possibility of more vibrant uses to this building would be a positive benefit to the street block and would complement both the retail and non-retail uses that are established in the area. A new flagship leisure operator in this prominent corner unit, which would cater for the needs of tourists, residents, office workers and others, would add to the attractiveness of the street and would accord with the aims of Development Plan policy. And that was by Brian Donnelly. The Herald on the 3rd of September and the news section. Unison overwhelmingly rejects pay offer for council workers by Gabriel Mackay. Bin strikes and school closures could hit across Scotland after council workers voted overwhelmingly to reject a pay offer from local government. Unison, the largest union in local government, has mandates for strike action by waste and recycling workers at 13 councils, as well as for education and early years support staff in 5. That mandate could be put into action after the latest pay offer from the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities, COSLA, was overwhelmingly rejected by members. Unison said 86% of those balloted had rejected the offer, which would see an hourly uplift in pay of 67p per hour or a 3.6% increase, whichever is the higher. Unison Scotland Local Government Committee Chair Colette Hunter said COSLA and the Scottish Government need to understand the anger among council staff. They want a fair increase to stop their pay consistently falling behind and for their wage increase to be in line with other areas of the economy. Unison announced last week it would close schools and waste services in First Minister John Swinney's constituency, Perth and Kinross. Unison Scotland local government lead David O'Connor said going on strike is never an easy decision, as council staff are acutely aware of the disruption it causes. They're asking why they have to do this every year. There's a high bar to reach, the legal threshold imposed by union laws, so not all councils achieve the mandate required. However, the anger is palpable. Thousands have rejected COSLA's pay offer, with an overwhelming majority, 92%, of those who voted agreeing to strike. The First Minister's constituency will be the initial target, ensuring he cannot overlook the real anger amongst staff regarding this inadequate pay offer. It says council workers are seeking an uplift in line with other public service workers, many of whom have been offered an increase of 5.5%. A COSLA spokesperson said, "We are deeply disappointed to learn that Unison have rejected our latest strong above-inflation SJC pay offer. This offer is at the absolute limit of affordability for local government and fully exhausts all available additional funding from Scottish Government. Local government have a responsibility to ensure sustainable service delivery for our communities across Scotland. We are clear that increasing the value of any pay offer would have very serious consequences. We remain concerned that Unison's expectations cannot be met without further unpalatable difficult decisions. We are aware that communities will be concerned about the potential impact of industrial action on the most vulnerable. We would urge Unison to reconsider our strong offer, which has an overall value of 4.27%. And that was by Gabriel Mackay. The Herald on the 3rd of September and the news section. Wallace Monument construction plans to go on display for first time. And this is by Mark McDougall. The plans which led to the construction of the National Wallace Monument will go on display for the first time as part of the celebrations around Stirling's 900th anniversary. The rare opportunity to study the plans will form the centrepiece of a double birthday celebration this week, with the city celebrating being 900 years old, and it also being 155 years since the Wallace Monument had its grand opening on September 11, 1869. The iconic landmark sits atop Abbey Craig and overlooks the city. From this Friday, a digitised version of the drawings from renowned Victorian architect John Thomas Rockhead will be on public display for the first time at the Keeper's Lodge, located on the monument's ground floor. They are a replica of the fragile originals, preserved in Stirling Council's archives, and will be free to view. The idea for a monument to William Wallace was first conceived in Stirling in 1850, and construction work began with the laying of a foundation stone overlooking Scotland's historic heartland in 1861. Stirling Council leader, Councillor Chris Kane, said, "This is a great year for Stirling, with our 900 celebrations in full swing, and a much-loved National Wallace Monument continuing to attract impressive visitor numbers from both home and abroad. Stirling is an ambitious, forward-thinking city, and of course we also cherish our world-class heritage offering. I know residents and visitors will also enjoy the opportunity to study the fascinating architectural drawings of the monument. Rockhead's plans were submitted as part of a competition, and his design was chosen from 106 entrants. The National Wallace Monument is not only a wonderful tribute to one of Scotland's greatest patriots, William Wallace, but to the design brilliance of the Rockhead himself. National Wallace Monument has welcomed more than 133,000 visitors from all around the world over the last 12 months, making it one of their busiest years in history. And that was by Mark McDougall.
This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday the 3rd of September 2024 from the business section. Oasis impact will be less than supersonic for the UK economy. This article is by Christy Dorsey. The cover of the March 2002 edition of Time magazine pictures a brazenly assured Paul David Hewson in full defiance mode, along with the headline question, "Can Bono save the world?" Time isn't adverse to a bit of tongue-in-cheek humour, but one must assume that the magazine's writers and editors were genuinely positing whether the U2 frontman could indeed pave the way to the eradication of extreme poverty, while also progressing other social justice issues around the planet. He was, after all, the world's biggest rock star of that era. A similar, if somewhat less dramatic question in recent days has been whether the Oasis Live 25 tour, announced last week, with Liam and Noel Gallagher performing together for the first time in 16 years, can just maybe help save the UK economy. It's no secret that live music industry has had a difficult time of it since COVID, with the sector's smaller venues in particular peril, as the cost of everything from artists' fees and beer through to electricity and staff wages has soared. According to the Music Venue Trust, only 11 of the 34 grassroots venues on the first Oasis UK tour in 1994 still exist, the other 23 having closed. One of those still on the go is Glasgow's Cat House, where my colleague Scott boasts about having spent the princely sum of £6.30 to see the band perform in June 1994. Ticket prices for the upcoming tour have soared, with a standard admission reportedly jumping in some cases to as much as £355, under the dynamic pricing mechanism operated by Ticketmaster, in which the cost for performances deemed in demand can be higher than initially advertised. The use of surge pricing by the band's promoters, SJM Concerts, MCD and DF Concerts and Events, has led to accusations of price gouging and promises of a government review by UK Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy. With so much money washing about, and in the wake of the Swift effect earlier this year, it is understandable that speculation has turned to the potential economic impact of the reunion of the long-warring Gallagher brothers. According to calculations by Billboard, they are expected to perform to approximately 1.3 million people across the 17-show run, which includes 3 nights at Edinburgh's 67,000 capacity Murrayfield Stadium. Based on an average ticket price of £150, the tour could gross around £200 million in ticket sales alone. Throw in the VIP packages, merchandise, sponsorship, and so forth, and that figure will at least double. The scope of the tour will be on par with that of the UK and Ireland leg of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, which spanned 18 sold-out shows in front of approximately 1.2 million people. It is estimated to have boosted UK spending by nearly £1 billion, with the benefits washing over into the hospitality and travel sectors. These kinds of events generate massive amounts of money, not just for the band and promoters from ticket sales, but for a whole range of third parties, said Paul Haywood-Schaefer, senior manager for business advisory firm Blick Rothenberg. There will be huge sums of money spent on merchandise, travel, hotels, bars and restaurants, as well as creating jobs which are all linked directly to these gigs. With the reunion gigs being hosted at stadiums located in Cardiff, Manchester, London, Edinburgh and Dublin, it won't just be the national economy benefiting. Fans from around the globe will descend on these cities, bringing new money into the local economies as well. In 2023, 19.2 million music tourists, defined as someone who travels outside their hometown or city for a gig, or those visiting from overseas, attended live concerts and festivals in the UK. That was up 33% on the previous year, generating an estimated £8 billion. Those are big numbers, and are certainly to be welcomed. But in a prolonged period of constrained consumer finances, the question that should be asked is how much of this is additional spending versus money being diverted from elsewhere. Expectations that shopkeepers would benefit from Taylor Swift's 3 concerts in Edinburgh in June proved wide of the mark, according to figures from the Scottish Retail Consortium, with Deputy Head Ewan MacDonald-Russell saying that consumers appeared to focus on experiences ahead of shopping. Some have suggested that the high price of tickets and accommodation during these mega events is leaving little spare cash to spend on items other than food and drink. Indeed, it has been reported that a Holiday Inn Express room next August for the first 2 nights of the Oasis performances at Murrayfield will cost £1,300 due to anticipated demand. This has raised concerns about the budgetary impact for performers and audiences at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is taking place at the same time. In any event, economists have warned not to read too much into the fierce fight that broke out on Saturday when Oasis tickets went up for sale. Fans may be willing to spend whatever it takes to attend the reunion tour, but in many cases this will result in them cutting back elsewhere on things such as shopping, eating out, or other leisure activities. The only significant amount of new money coming in will be from those travelling from abroad, though Oasis have suggested via social media that plans are underway to take the tour to other continents outside of Europe later next year. It's also worth noting that despite the blockbuster spending on tickets, travel and accommodation for the Taylor Swift concerts that took place in June, official GDP data for the UK has shown that arts, entertainment and recreation output crept up by a mere 0.1% compared to the previous month. You're more likely to see a feel-good factor rather than a significant increase in GDP from the Oasis tour, according to economist Modupe Adegbembo of Jefferies. Any boost to consumer sentiment, even if it's a strong one, is likely to be limited if it isn't also supported by an improving macro outlook. That article was by Christy Dorsey. This is from the Herald Scotland of Tuesday the 3rd of September 2024 from the business section. Scotch whisky distillery exports surge and high spirits link. This article is by Ian McConnell. Holyrood Distillery has underlined its strong growth in exports, revealing sales at the mid-year point already exceed those of 2023 by 15%, in spite of challenging market conditions. The Edinburgh-based distillery noted it currently exports to 15 overseas markets, with a further 10 confirmed for early 2025. Holyrood Distillery also announced an exclusive import and distribution partnership with Dutch company High Spirits, a supplier to the off-trade which works with a network of independent specialist retailers across the Netherlands. Each shop will stock Holyrood's distillery's full spirits portfolio, which includes Height of Arrows gin, Elizabeth Yard sherry cask rum, and single malt whiskies, Ambeer and Embra. Giancarlo Bianchi, sales director at Holyrood Distillery, said, "It's an exciting time for Holyrood Distillery as we announce our partnership with High Spirits and begin distribution of our full spirits portfolio throughout the Netherlands. High Spirits is a young independent supplier with a small yet dynamic team who are experts in identifying the best suited independent retailers for brands. Our priority is to identify the ideal export partners to tell our unique story, get liquid on lips, and support our full portfolio of super premium and innovative Scottish spirits, and we believe that High Spirits is a perfect partner to do just that." He added, "Despite challenging market conditions, Holyrood Distillery continues to see strong international growth, and thanks to the unique characteristics of the liquid, our urban location and innovative approach, we've already exceeded last year's export volume." Holyrood Distillery, founded in 2019, describes itself as being dedicated to producing spirits that are truly worthy of Scotland's capital city and its proud past as a centre of brewing and distilling. In October 2023, the urban distillery launched its inaugural single malt, Arrival, which the distillery noted is one of the first single malt whiskies produced in Edinburgh in a century. That article was by Ian McConnell.
From the Herald, Saturday, 1st of September 2024, Sports section. Failure to build Andy Murray Centre is a huge waste of his success. By Susan Eaglestaff, sports writer. I still remember feeling a thrill of excitement when walking into the Susie Susanti Sports Hall in Indonesia. The former Olympic badminton champion isn't a household name in Britain, but is one of the greatest female badminton players ever and one of my heroes growing up as an aspiring badminton player. She was a big deal to me. It's why walking into her eponymous sports hall meant a lot more to me than walking into a generically named facility would ever mean. Remembering this feeling, I get a pang of sadness that there will not anytime soon, and perhaps never, be a similarly dedicated facility to the man I would consider Scotland's greatest ever sportsperson, Andy Murray. The news this week, the plans for the Andy Murray Centre near Dunblane have been scrapped due to a combination of factors, including increases in construction, material, energy and labour costs. A lengthy and uncertain planning process was perhaps not particularly surprising, given how long it had been in the pipeline, without a brick ever being laid. But the predictability of this news does little to lessen the disappointment. Andy Murray hit his last ball as a professional tennis player on the 2nd of August, bringing down the curtain on a career that saw him win 3 Grand Slam titles, including 2 Wimbledons, 2 Olympic gold medals, become world number 1, and spearhead a British team that won the Davis Cup for the first time in almost 80 years. He became a sporting hero to many, both within Scotland and further afield. As soon as he hung up his racket, the obvious question was, what legacy will endure? I'm often frustrated by the almost constant use of the word legacy within the sporting world, particularly when it comes to hosting sporting events. It's legacy this, legacy that. So often it's a phrase that means very little and is used merely to add a layer of significance to that often isn't really there. But in this case of Murray, it's legitimate to ponder his legacy. There will, not in my lifetime anyway, be another Andy Murray. I'm certain that even in 100 years' time, Murray will remain the greatest tennis player Scotland has ever produced. He was that good. In terms of an intangible legacy, he certainly left one. The interest in tennis has unquestionably increased within Scotland over the course of his 2-decade-long career. Tennis participation figures have risen within Scotland, and more than a few of Scotland's elite athletes have cited Murray as an inspiration. Certainly he proved that hailing from Scotland need not be a barrier to success at the very top level of sport, regardless of how rare it had previously been. But the halting of the plans for the Andy Murray Centre mean that in the near future anyway, there will not be a bricks and mortar legacy of Murray's career. It was his mum Judy who was behind the idea for the centre, having for some time spoken of her disenchantment at the lack of a legacy of the success of both Andy and his elder brother, Jamie Murray. This decision about the Andy Murray Centre will only compound that disappointment. And Murray himself commentated sarcastically on social media, "What a surprise." Certainly the idea of this centre was not without its flaws. Did another indoor tennis facility need to be built in the location that was selected when there's an excellent indoor tennis centre just a few miles down the road at the University of Stirling? And much of the dissent of the local community was not towards the sports facility per se. Rather, it was focused on the luxury housing that would accompany the sports centre and their disapproval that it would be built on greenbelt land. So it wasn't the perfect plan, but what plan is perfect? In the absence of any competing suggestions of location, this was by far the best there was. A centre in Murray's name, it was to be multi-sport and not specifically tennis, would be a fitting tribute, and indeed tennis legend Billie Jean King branded the suggestion of a Murray Centre as the best legacy for Andy and his brother. It's hard to disagree. To not have a tangible legacy of Murray's career seems so incredibly wasteful and such a missed opportunity. In reality, the fact that this conversion remains ongoing, despite the fact Murray won his first Grand Slam 12 years ago, says much about where sport truly is in the list of priorities of this nation. Murray's greatest legacy, far more than producing another Andy Murray, would be for Scotland to become a more active, physically healthy nation in which sporting opportunities are both accessible and affordable for every single person in society. As things stand, that's not the case. Yes, this proposed Andy Murray Centre would not have been the answer to all of these problems. The answer to the problem of Scotland, in some sectors of the population anyway, being an inactive and unhealthy group, needs a far wider ranging solution than the construction of a single sports centre. But it would have sent the message that success in the sporting world does matter, and it's damn well going to be used to improve Scotland as a whole. So as things stand, Murray's success will be consigned to Scottish sporting history, whereas in reality it should be being used to galvanise a positive Scottish sporting present and future. We'll see in the coming years if either this Andy Murray Centre or another one ever comes to fruition. If the answer is no, it's a monumental waste of sporting success, and we're unlikely to ever see this again. This article was by Susan Eaglestaff. From the Herald, Tuesday, 3rd of September 2024. Sports section. Oscar only. My Tour de France success gives me so much belief. By Susan Eaglestaff, sports writer. I know that in cycling, it just doesn't get harder than the Tour de France. So having done that, it gives me so much confidence going into other races. Oscar only knows that having not just survived, but thrived when confronted with the toughest challenge of his life, everything else will now feel easy. Well, perhaps not easy, but far more manageable than would have been the case just a few months ago. This summer only became the first homegrown Scot for 3 decades to both start and finish the Tour de France. Those 3 weeks of his tour debut were, admits the 21-year-old, quite an eye-opener. But the fact he coped so admirably with the toughest race in the cycling calendar, and arguably the toughest challenge in the sporting world, has given him a newfound self-belief. Only who rides for Dutch-based team DSM Firmenich Post NL did far more than merely make up the numbers in this summer's tour. In the opening stage, he was a vital member of the DSM squad that claimed the yellow jersey for Romain Bardet, while it was on stage 17 that only made his mark personally, finishing 5th in the treacherous French Alps. His final placings of 10th in the youth classification, 24th in the mountains, and 39th in the general classifications were just reward for a rider who has quietly but diligently worked his way to the upper echelons of the sport. And while he's been in the professional ranks for 2 years now, it was those 3 weeks in July that have done more for his mindset than anything else he's encountered on a bike. The tour was a great experience, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to do it, he says. It's so much bigger than any other race I've done, and at times it felt like a different sport, so it was a great learning experience, and it gives me a lot of motivation for the future. A few times I get into the breaks and put myself in a position to go for a result, but physically I need to get stronger so that I'm fresher in those final moments of the stages. Mentally it was very challenging too. You have to be switched on for 21 days, and that takes its toll. You have to just accept that you'll be suffering all day. The tour is such a high level, so it's a huge confidence boost to have gotten through it. Those 2,000 or so miles of this summer's tour took surprisingly little out of Onley's legs, and he was back competing just weeks later with a fine performance in Poken's Tour de Pologne, in which he claimed top 10 finishes in both the GC and the mountains classification. It's this coming week, however, that will be a particular highlight of Onley's season. He rarely races in Britain these days, with the European mainland his typical hunting ground, but this week the Scot will make his first competitive appearance on British soil for 2 years, and it couldn't come in a place closer to his heart. The 2024 Tour of Britain begins today in Kelso, which also happens to be Onley's hometown. Stage 1 will snake around the Scottish borders before finishing in Kelso's Market Square, with the race then heading south of the border, finishing in Felixstowe on Sunday. For Onley, who is having the season of his life, the location of this week's opening stage is a twist of fate that couldn't have worked out any better. It's so exciting to be racing in Britain, and especially the first stage in Kelso. That's special, he says. I'll be going for the GC. The course doesn't suit me perfectly, but hopefully it's a hard race and I'll have a few chances. Also in the hunt for GC glory will be Remco Evenepoel and Tom Pidcock, while Onley's fellow Scots Sean Flynn and Callum Thornley will also be on the starting lineup. Onley may have personal ambitions over the coming week, but perhaps of even greater significance is the message he's sending to aspiring Scottish riders, many of whom will be likely on the roadside today, that becoming a world-class road rider is far from a fantasy. And the importance of this is not lost on the Kelso native. Hopefully kids will see where I'm from and what I've managed to do, and I'll make them believe it's possible, he says. I really believe that Scottish kids can do this. If they enjoy riding their bike and they put in the work, the pathway is definitely there to make it to a high level. Onley's season is drawing to a close, and already he's looking towards 2025 and how he can utilise the experience he's garnered this year. Appreciating his progress is not, admits Onley, a skill of his, but perhaps it's his critical mindset that's already seen him become one of Scotland's most successful road cyclists of recent times. I feel I've still got a lot of room for improvement, and I'm setting my targets a bit higher for next season, he says. Sometimes I need to take a step back and appreciate what I've done this season, because I'm not great at that. I'm always looking forward. The coaches of the team say I'm too hard on myself. I'm proud of what I've done so far, but I definitely want to go for bigger results and better performances in the future. It's a future that's indisputably bright. That article was by Susan Eaglestad.
That concludes this week's edition of the Herald Scotland podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Review and tell your friends about our service.